Good morning. It's about 5 p.m. It's a Sunday and I did my makeup today. If I look a little different, I did like a full face, which I never do, but I'm kind of getting back into it. And I also feel like I just took my hair out and I kind of look like Lisa Rinna. Thoughts? Prayers? But I haven't really felt like filming, and the reason why is I've been in a little rut. You know, I've been like on my grind, waking up early, reading, doing my manifestation, being all sorts of productive. And after spring break, I've just kind of fallen off in my first week back in New York. And there's something that feels really awful about that. Like, I've woken up between 10 and 12 for the past 3 days, for the most part, or woken up early and went back to sleep. And it just doesn't feel good. And I think that like finding a balance can be pretty tricky, because I went out last night with my friend from high school and my girlfriend, and that was a lot of fun. And I want to be able to go out and do fun things, but then I'm like, oh, but I need to wake up at 6:30. And I feel like finding balance can be pretty tough, and being in a rut is tough as well, because you're like, oh my God, what if I'm back to square one? What if I'm gonna be back like I was for those years where I was in bed like almost all the time because of my mental health? And I've also just been thinking about like the familiarity of sadness, and how sometimes when we want to get better, there's something that holds us back from doing that and from feeling. Let me try to zoom in a little. And I think when we enter into recovery or trying to make changes in our lives, or start to feel better or feel more self-love, for me it feels like there's this huge block up that keeps me from being able to feel that. And it's finally starting to go away, but I think it's because it can be scary to try to be feeling better or try to like do better, because it's so familiar to be doing poorly. Like, you felt bad for so long, you felt anxious or depressed for so long, or you've hated yourself for so long, that when you don't feel that way, it's so scary, and you just want to like hold on to it and hold on to that moment forever so that you never go back to where you were. And that's not realistic, because there is like ups and downs, and you're not always going to go from feeling horrible to feeling great and then staying at feeling great. And I think because we know that every phase is temporary, it feels almost better or more reliable or more comforting, because it's more familiar, to not even take those steps to do better, so that you can have a sense of stability, even if the stability is doing poorly, rather than doing poorly, then doing well, then kind of bad, then really good, then like not so good, then like okay. And I think it can be really tough to accept that everything is temporary, you know, like when you're feeling bad, it's temporary, and there's an option to make, not like an option because that makes it sound like it's a choice, but like there is the possibility of feeling better, but you kind of have to accept that you're not always going to feel good, and that recovery and self-love isn't about always feeling good. It's about always knowing that you're worthy and not giving up on yourself, and not, you know, and taking better care of yourself to be the type of person that you want to be. And I think that's really hard, especially with mental illness. I have OCD, and I know that like it's so hard to love yourself when your brain is telling you that you don't deserve it, or when you have such horrible intrusive thoughts that you're like, someone like me doesn't deserve to be happy, or what if all my worst fears are true about who I am, or about, you know, OCD is tricky because you can have it about like any theme. So for someone, like someone could have hit and run OCD, where they have obsessive fears about what if they ran someone over while they were driving and they don't remember it. It can be tough to like be in that position or an adjacent position and be like, well, if I did that, if I ran someone over and I somehow don't remember, that makes me a bad person. Like, I don't deserve self-love. I'm not a good person. And I think that's part of why it feels so scary to me. Like, self-love just feels daunting. And I feel like I'm finally making progress. But for so long, when people would be like, do affirmations, do like your self-love work, I didn't want to, because I didn't feel like I deserved it, and I was scared of what would happen if I did start loving myself, because there's this fear of, what if I stop feeling so horrible all the time? Because you don't know what that's like, and it's not familiar, and things that aren't familiar can be pretty scary. And I don't know, that's just something I've been thinking about, is how self-love can be so difficult, not just because it's hard to love yourself, but sometimes it's hard to even begin to take that journey because you don't feel like you deserve it. And I think that can also keep us from discrediting how far we've come. Like for me, I feel like I don't even want to acknowledge how far I've come with my OCD because I don't want to even think about how bad it used to be. I'd rather just pretend it never happened. And then when I don't feel good, or when I have a little relapse and have like an episode, it can be easy to feel like you've lost all your progress, but really you'll never be back at square one. Like say square one is down here, you might start trying to feel better, but you'll never be back at the same spot, even if you do have dips, because everyone has dips. It's completely normal. Sometimes you have a dip that's even worse than you were when you started, but it'll never be exactly the same as square one, because now you have experience and now you have new information and maybe new coping skills and ways to get out of feeling so bad. So for me, I might have, you know, a day where my anxiety is level 10 out of 10 with my OCD, and I'm feeling so anxious, so like can't stop doing compulsions, and that might feel horrible and like all progress has been lost, but it hasn't, because then that period lasts only for a day, whereas a few years ago a spiral like that would last like weeks or months, you know. And I think it's important to notice the little wins and the little ways you've been doing better, yet at the same time that's coming from someone who doesn't like to acknowledge the wins, because I don't like to acknowledge that I haven't always had them. I don't want to think about how far I've come because I don't want to think about where I started, and because it's so painful to go back there. But yeah, I guess I just wanted to make this video to show you that like it's okay to be in a rut. It's okay to have days where you're like in bed almost the whole time, or where you just can't stop sleeping, or you're not getting enough work done, or you feel like you're not, but maybe you're. You know, it's so easy to be so hard on ourselves when we're not doing so hot. And like I'm doing fine, I just have had a lot of trouble with doing a new exposure that I've been assigned, and I've just been like super tired. And I just think we need to like give ourselves patience and grace when we feel that way, because everyone goes through that. And I know it doesn't feel good, but it's not a death sentence either. It doesn't mean that you're never gonna get better, or that you're back at square one, or that like there's no point in even trying anymore because now you're already off your routine or whatever. So I kind of mixed a bunch of topics together in this video. I hope it made sense. And yeah, thank you for watching.